Hello, in this video I will show you how to make a complete cover for a KDP ebook like this one that you're looking at with GIMP. GIMP or GIMP. GIMP is free software and is a clone of paintshop Pro. This video is part of my 6-hour course GIMP for Beginners, which you can find on Udemy. I've posted a link to that course in the description below this video. In this video I use certain files and images that you can download for free from my Gumroad shop, and the link to that zip file is also in the description below. Notice that in this video I use GIMP version 2.8, but if you download the current version of GIMP you get 2.10. But you can do exactly the same operations with 2.10 as with 2.8. So let's go. In this module, we will create our first complete cover. Now, before you start designing your cover, you should already have a rough idea what you want to put on your cover. Because if you just start GIMP and you start staring at a blank cover, you have to have something in your head of an idea or images or pieces of images that you will need to make your cover. So for this exercise, imagine that I have written a sugar sweet romance story. They get married and they get kids and they love each other, blah blah blah. So in other words, in the romance category. Now, one of the best ways to get ideas about these type of covers is to go on Amazon and look in the category where you are going to publish your book what those covers look like. So I went to Amazon and I typed in love, and I'm in the romance contemporary category. And so let's scroll a little bit through these books. Now, the first thing that I notice is that on all these books the word love is written with those nice curly font. Yeah, over here, over here, over here, over here. Okay. Another thing that I very quickly notice is that all these books have either a couple or a muscled body. So a couple of key points that I already picked up on this first page is, in this category it's couples or muscled bodies. Now this is another example of a typical layout that you will see, a typical cover, where you have at the bottom a landscape of some sort, a skyline or a sundown, and you have the title in the middle, and you have an image at the top. Yeah. So let's see if we can. Here you have the muscles again, and here you have the muscles again. You see here you have one of those covers with a landscape at the bottom and an image above. Here you have the same, but let's skip a little bit through these pages. Again, here we have the couple. Let's see. We have the muscles, and here we have the couple again, and here we have the skyline and the couple again. So if I look at this and I had to make one of these covers, I would say, okay, what I need is an image of a couple or an image of muscles somewhere, and maybe some kind of landscape. But if you look from a technical point of view, they're all pretty simple to make. Yeah. Here you have a background, the couple, the title, and the author. Yeah. Here we have the same. Yeah. Background, couple, title, subtitle, and author. Now it's obvious that looking at these covers that this category is targeted towards women, I guess, and that's why we see all these muscles here. Yeah, they look a bit like me. So the couples, you see, they're all a little bit, they have the same way of, yeah, here we have the muscles again. Here also, let's skip through a couple of pages. Well, I think it is pretty clear what a cover in this category should look like. Yeah, and again, this isn't really, if you look at the from a technical point again, it's all pretty simple. Yeah, here you have, you know, this is one image, title, subtitle. Let's see if we have some, you know, something interesting, but most of it, it's all, it's very similar, all these covers, at least from a designer point of view. Let's have a look. Here we have the muscles again. You see on all those books it's love with the curly font. Okay, so we should use one of those curly fonts. Well, here we have the famous skyline picture again. Well, I think I've seen enough already to get an idea of what I want to make. Yeah, so let's have one more page to see if something comes up. Okay. Okay, well, as I said, there's nothing, they aren't really any covers that I say, you know, this is really something really very complicated. Now, here you see this one, for example. Let's have a closer look at this one. Okay. Okay, so here we have one background picture of Amsterdam and the couple, the author, and the title. Now, this is probably a standard font, and I'll show you later on how you can figure that out. This letter is, of course, not the same font as these, and I don't know if it's a ready-made font or maybe it is made by hand, and this thing is probably drawn by hand. But it's not rocket science to make a cover like that. Now, where can you find images? Well, there are lots of sites where you can get images, either free or paid. I'll show you a couple of them. Here I have all free download. Yeah, I typed in couple. Now, as you can see, these are free images. Well, there isn't really anything interesting. This might have been interesting, but you should be careful because these are advertisement for paid sites. Yeah. So the message is, when you are looking for images, always make sure that you have the right to use them. Yeah. Either you get them from a free site where it is clearly stated that this image can be used for commercial use, or you buy them on a site like this one, iStock Photos. Yeah, if I go to, and I like this site, this is iStock, but you know, there are dozens of these, and here you can find images which maybe will cost you, I don't know, $5 or $10 or something like that. Let me type in couple, because you know, if you just go on Google and or Google Images, and you take an image from there, you don't know if you have the right to use it, and it would be a real bummer if you write a book and it becomes a bestseller and you're selling 1,000 copies a day, and then after a couple of months there is a knock knock on your door, and it's Mr. Lawyer who's asking you for $500,000 or $1 million because you used copyright image. Yeah, and it's even worse that you first have to pay the fine, and second, you might have to change the cover for your bestseller. So the message is, you know, always make sure that the images that you use on a cover, that you have the right to use them. Now, back to this site. I like this site because you can tick off here what you want. Yeah, I want only photos, and I want creatives, and I only want vertical images, and I want here the image size. Now always take images with a reasonable size. Yeah, so let's say at least 1,000 pixels wide, because if you take a small picture, if it's too small, let's say 300 pixels wide or 400 pixels, sure, you can always increase the size of an image, but if you start with a small image, then the algorithm has to create new pixels, and some of them are very good, but it's always better to start with an original picture which is by default pretty big. Yeah, and scaling down is not a problem. So if I would take this, for example, yeah, mid-sized, now I still have 68,000 results here, but there are quite a number of you know, couples that I could use. I think we just saw this one on one of the covers. So yeah, here you see immediately a drawback of using photos from sites like this, that you are not the only one. So if you make a cover, yeah, this is probably a popular picture, and this one may have been used already by other people on their cover, so that's another thing. Now let's go to Flickr, and if you go to the Creative Commons, here I typed in also couple, and well, here you see here those are free and for commercial use. Now I could take this one, for example. Yeah. So there are some good ones from time to time that you can find on those free sites. Okay, so I did some searching, and I found, for my exercise, I found this image for my beach. Okay, looks pretty nice, romantic beach. And I found this one for my couple. Now I admit that it's not maybe the most romantic picture, but you know, it's just for an example. But the better your picture is, the better the total result will be. But this is just for teaching purposes. Okay, so so what I'm going to make, or what we are going to make, is a cover which is here. Okay, so this is a real book, And so we're not going to copy it, but we're going to use the basic idea of a beach, ocean, sky, a couple, the title, and the author. And this is something which this specific author has added to a whole series. So this book is one out of a series. So again, the exercise is not how can we copy a cover, but how can we make something which fits in this category. Okay? Now that I found my images, let's go back here, and I'm going to start my cover. So I say new, and what should be the size of the cover? Now it seems to be a convention, let's say, to make a cover of 2500 pixels high, and I publish my books also in printed versions. Now when you do printed versions, there are a couple of standard layouts, and a very common one is 6 by 9 inches, which means that the aspect ratio is 1.5. The book is 1.5 higher than the width. So if I take my calculator and I take a book of 2500 high, then the width comes out of 1667. I will create a cover of 1667 by 2500. I will make it in, this is the pixels per inch, and because if I only make a ebook, so the electronic version, then 96 dpi, or dots per inch or pixels per inch would be enough. But for printed books, if you go to create space, they ask you to make a cover of at least 200 dpi. So I'm going to use 200 dpi, and I'm going to fill it with white. Okay, so here I have my new book cover. Now let's start off with my beach image. I go here and I drag my beach image, which, by the way, you can see is 4732 by 7000 pixels. So this is a pretty high resolution image, and I drag it onto my cover that I'm going to make. And here you see I have a new layer for this image. Now, as I just showed you, this image is a lot bigger in pixels than my book cover. This is the size of the image of the beach, and so if I move this layer, you see I only see different parts of it. So what I want to do is to scale this layer so that it fits on my book cover. Now, as I just showed you, the size of this image is 4732 by 7008. So if I calculate it, then we get 7008 divided by 4732, which is 1.48. So the aspect ratio of this image is not 1.5, which means that I can't resize this layer so that it fits exactly on my cover, because it doesn't have an aspect ratio of 1.5 like my cover has. Now I have two solutions. Either I will crop my beach picture so that it will get an aspect ratio of 1.5 and then scale it, or in this particular case, because the ratio is close to 1.5, it's only 1.48, I could just rescale this layer and deform it a little bit, but because there are no persons or animals or other things which will look a bit funny when they are a little bit distorted, it doesn't really matter in this case if I just would scale it. So, and that's what I'm going to do, because that's simpler. And why do things difficult when you can do it the simple way? So I will take this and I will, well, for the moment I will lock it and I will scale it a bit. Let's scale it to 1667, and I will take this off, so I will make this like 20. Scale. And now I will move it. This is the first operation. Here I have my beach and I have put it on the size of my cover. The next thing is my couple. Picture of my couple, and I will open this for the moment in a separate tab. So I move it onto my toolbox, and here I have my couple. Now it's clear that first of all this couple is a bit too big for my background, because the size of this image is also 2033 by 3000, so it's pretty big. And second, it has this red background that I want to get rid of. Yeah. So let's do things one by one. First, I want to fill this with transparency. So I want to cut out this couple and put it like they were on a transparency. Well, the first thing is that I have to add the transparency capability to this image. So because this is in bold here, and I go to layer and I go to transparency and I add transparency. Yeah. Now I have to select this red area and fill it with transparency. Now, how am I going to select this? The most obvious seems to be either the color select, but let me show you what happens. If I take the color select and I click here, you see it will also select all the red in those roses. So that's not the most clever way to do this. I will take instead the magic wand, and I will start with this option, replace the current selection, and I will click here, and now we already have a better selection. Now why do I get these lines here? That's only due to the resolution of my screen, because if I zoom in, you can see that it just is because I have all these little dots here. So I just, oops, you see I made the mistake now that I left on here create a new selection. So I'm going to zoom out, and from now on I'm going to put it into add mode, and I'm going to say everything where I click will be added to what I already have. And now you see that I'm getting a pretty good selection of everything that I want. So here are a couple of pixels left, and here are a couple of pixels left. So take this one again, make sure that you keep it in add mode. Yeah, I select these pixels, and here are a couple of pixels, and here is a pixel, and here is a pixel. Okay, well, this seems not too bad. Let's see if I zoom in. I see that I forgot this little part, so I click again on here, verify that I'm always in the add mode, and I add this to the selection. And now it is getting pretty good. The only problem is here or here. Well, I will do this later with another method. So yeah, we will clean this up later. And let's have a look here. What do we have here? Yeah, this looks okay to me. So zoom out. Now don't forget that on Amazon this cover will be shown on a lot smaller size than what you see them on your screen. So it is really unnecessary to twiggle around with the last individual pixel, because no one will ever see that. So this seems pretty good. So now that I've made my selection, it's enough to say edit clear, or press the delete key, and here we have the transparent background. Now we're going to twiggle a little bit the details here. First of all, I can do this with the eraser, add it and select select none, and now I will erase here all this red stuff. Okay, and here, okay, and I will do the same over here. Okay, and because the image has been cut off here, this will always remain a straight cut line. So to avoid that, I will do a little bit like this, as if her hair was a little bit more natural. Yeah, let's put it like this. Okay, and he also has some red here, which I want to remove. Okay, this seems pretty good now. Here we still have some. Okay, good. So now I would select the background with the magic wand, and you see I clicked here, which took this whole part, and I would add this to my selection. Okay, so now I got the whole couple, and now I have selected the outside, so I will invert it, and you see now I will have the couple selected. Now I will shrink the selection a little bit by, well, let's say 10 points. Let's see what that gives. And that's very little, so I will do it again. Select shrink by again 10 points. That's maybe a bit too much, so I'll grow it by 5 pixels. Okay, well, this looks a little bit better. And now I will say select feather with, so my border is now 15 points from the real outside, so I will feather it over, at least 15 points, so 20 should be enough, and I say okay. So what do we have now? If I zoom in and if I put on my quick mask, you see it goes from, let me make this really clear by doing a right click and setting this to 100. Okay, so now you see I don't have a hard cut anymore. It will go from non-selected to fully selected gradually. Yeah. Okay, so now I would switch off my quick mask. I would select none, and I would do an edit copy. Now I go to my beach and I do edit paste as a new layer, and here I have my couple on the beach. Now, as we already saw, this image which I selected was of a much higher resolution than my complete cover. So also for this layer I will have to resize it, and we know how to do this. Yeah, so I select the layer, I click on my scale tool, I lock this chain symbol so that it will keep the aspect ratio, because I don't want to get any deformed people, and I will resize it to, well, let's say something like this. Let's see what this gives. Okay, well, this is not too bad. Yeah, I could have made it maybe a little bit bigger, but I can still move it. Let's zoom in a bit. Yeah, I think it's not too bad. We could put them here. Okay, with the sunshine just above her head. Okay, I think this is pretty okay. Okay, so now we have placed our couple.